Hello, everyone. I'm Margot Shaw, Editor-in-Chief of Flower Magazine, and I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with Suzanne Tucker today. Suzanne, hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Hi, Margot. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So for those few of you who are not aware, Suzanne is one of the leading interior designers in the country, and she has two books. And one is called Rooms to Remember, the Classic Interiors of Suzanne Tucker. And the other is Suzanne Tucker Interiors, The Romance of Design. And I loved your feature in Flower, my hometown, about Santa Barbara. That
Yeah,
was really fun. I've never been there, and I felt like I had almost been there, and I got acquainted and inspired. So
yeah, that was really a wonderful thing for me to do, for you certainly, but just for myself and for, the shopkeepers and just, Montecito itself, and to go to Lotus Land, and which literally was my stomping grounds as a child, and my playground, I should say.
mhm.
And so whenever I get down there, I always try to visit Lotus Land, particularly. It's one of my most favorite gardens in the world. And for those of you who haven't been, it's extraordinary.
Suzanne, the whole wonderland of being at Lotus Land as a child, I guess we could start there, because I would like for people to hear your background and how you arrived at this fabulous place you are right now.
Okay. I have to really sort of go back and credit my mother, who is British. Um, and the Brits just have gardening and horticulture in their cellular beings.
Mhm.
And so my love of gardens, certainly, I think, and my understanding of gardens initially came as really just a very little girl. And we were very fortunate. I grew up on 14 acres in Montecito, right next to Lotus Land. And my mother and father had lovely extensive gardens, and dahlias that were taller than I was. And it was, if I was ever trying to find my mother or my father, I'd look in the garden.
Mhm.
But that was really sort of my childhood in gardens and loving gardens. And
Idyllic.
then, of course, Santa Barbara is a garden paradise. And there's a wonderful book, by the way, titled that, Garden Paradise, which is all about Santa Barbara gardens. But I had the great fortune of growing up amidst many of them. And just next to our property alone, besides Lotus Land, there was the Brundage property, there was the Valverde estate, and the Waterman estate, and we just had the run of the place as children. So, I thought nothing of beautiful reflecting ponds with swans and fountains, and oh yeah, this is normal life.
Mhm.
Well, hardly, but
Sure.
I didn't know that at the time. And it really was influenced by I think those gardens and that climate. And so I've always had a passion for gardens and design, and I certainly incorporate into my interiors work architecture and the garden,
Mhm.
and what is outside of those windows, because depending on where you live in the country or in the world, you don't always get to live in your garden, but you live with your garden. And
Right.
that might be just your view out of your window. So I want to always have it to bring that outside in with your color palette and what you see, and focus on and your garden perspectives and so forth. And I'm forever bringing landscape architects and garden designers, by the hand into the house when it's under construction or remodel, and I'll put them at the window and I'll say, this is what they're going to live with. They're going
Yeah.
to see it out here.
Suzanne, you've had collections for 10 years, 11 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Just wrapping up the end of our 10th anniversary of launching Suzanne Tucker Home, which launched with a textile line.
Mhm.
And that's been a great creative aspect and addition to my life. I will tell you that. And we've grown it now in 10 years to be all sorts of things, from silks to wovens to cottons and prints. We have things done in Chile to Belgium to Scotland, England, France, Italy, India, and the United States. So it's very global. And this last collection, I always try to find an inspiration point in terms of like, what do I want the theme? It's always fun to sort of take a theme and run with it. And I was inspired by this wonderful embroidery that I started to work with and expand and colorize and so forth. And it inspired me sort of to a garden mood and a floral mood, and but really the garden. And then I started thinking about sort of historic gardeners and landscape designers and architects who have inspired all of us over the years.
So this is the new collection, and it is called?
Well, it's Suzanne Tucker Home Textiles. It's the spring collection.
Okay.
But it's all named after garden designers.
And these are not just any garden designers; they're the icons. So Gertrude Jekyll, and these embroidered flowers, and this is what kind of fabric?
This is a mixture of a linen and silk, and so the embroidery, as you see in the floral aspect, and then there's a stripe there in the center, which is a little bit of a satin. And again, this can, they can all be sort of dressed up or dressed down. She did those beautiful layered English gardens, and the subtlety of colors, and of course, these lovely pathways that I always think that the English do so well, where they start low and then they work up high, and there's always something of layers to look into the depth of them.
Yeah.
And of course, hyacinth, that's the Hyacinthoides non-scripta for you Latin lovers.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love the blues? The blues and whites are always, so dreamy no matter where. And then Penelope, this is named after Penelope Hobhouse, who, started having her books in my library years ago. And she's quite a character. You can see again this sort of inspiration of her color palette and some of these textiles, but also just how she would layer. That's always the interesting aspect, and the movement, I think, of plants and leaves, and the shadowing effects are always, I think, so inspirational.
And this is a little looser than Gertrude too.
Yes, this is looser. Again, I think there is a certain sort of, if I can say, tailored looseness to the English gardens, which, that's sort of tailored when you on a pathway or at the beds, but then they get looser as you go out.
This was in flower, I think. Right?
Yes. So I don't know if you all knew that there's an indigo mushroom. This is the indigo mushroom. I mean, that's not filtered or anything. That is really how this mushroom grows. It's pretty amazing. And then Jeffrey Jellicoe.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to just, focus on women. I wanted to bring in some the gentlemen who have designed fabulous landscapes in the past. And so this is that lovely textural quality. This is one of his drawings. Again, a bit more masculine, but I wanted to.
What is this fabric, Suzanne?
It's a chenille. It's but not a really thick, nubby one. It's a nice, soft, sort of beautiful textured. He would do these wonderful sort of vistas and alleys, and it almost looks, completely natural. And of course, it's very well thought out. And the ferns and these sort of colors that he would use, and in the underbeddings under his trees and meadows were really beautiful.
That could be watered on the left.
Yeah, exactly. Water in the garden, but the hyacinth blue, of course, is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The fabrics are not fragrant, but
No, well, that's
maybe
up to the owner.
right. Mushrooms are endlessly beautiful if you really take them and study them. Their texture, and the subtlety of colors. You can find, people say, well, what's your favorite color, or what color don't you like or don't you use? Basically, you can find absolutely every single color in nature.
Right.
And it's really, it's all about how it's put together.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nuance of these mushrooms and is recapped in the fabric so beautifully. What about Nora Lindsay?
Nora Lindsay was a really fascinating woman. She was an aristocrat, and but went to work, which is unusual. I think because she had to, but she had a love of gardens, and would be asked to lay out a garden or do something. And I loved her use of color. I thought she would do things that are very sort of beautiful together. Plus, planting this pagoda out here in this sort of open space, I thought was, that wonderful sort of romantic folly of that era of time in the 1920s.
But unexpected with the red, the Chinese red, and just so perfect.
Here she is.
Isn't she? That looks like a sergeant, but no, it's Harrington Man. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I know. Beautiful portrait. And she was quite lovely. And she was a beautiful woman, and as you can see, very elegant, but just had this, wonderful eye for the gardens.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you pulled in the Wedgwood to just make that blue pop even more in the fabric, and to have a context is perfect. Okay.
Yeah. This is a lovely read. If anyone would like to read more about Nora, she really was quite something, because she was ahead of her time, and she was sort of broke the mold. She was a lady who was brought up to, basically, you're going to get married and be someone's wife, and but she forged out into this world, a working world, which was unheard of. But lovely sort of story about her.
Okay, well, she is somebody I'm going to learn more about. Thank you for that. Okay, so Vita.
And then Vita Sackville West. What hasn't been written about her? She was quite something. She has the white garden, and I of course, we're familiar with rose gardens, or vegetable gardens, but it was the first time I really had been introduced to the concept of creating a garden specifically on a color palette, a white garden or a blue garden. This was from her white garden. Yeah, this beautiful thistle. It's fantastic.
And am I wrong, or did she grow up at Knoll House?
Yes, she did. She grew up at Knoll.
So she was ahead of the game from the get-go in terms of aesthetics and gardens and beauty and lush. Yeah. So.
Yeah, this is Sissinghurst, which obviously in the wintertime, or in very early spring, the leaves haven't popped yet on the trees and so forth. But look how beautiful just this very neutral palette is of a garden at its sort of, I wouldn't say bleakest moment, but in a bleak time of year, let's put it that way. And it's still so beautiful.
Yeah. Talk about the fabric.
So this one is sort of one of those almost e-cottish or watery, drawings, where it almost looks sketchy. And so I wanted to pull from some of her garden images, and to keep it very subtle, keep it quiet. Not a lot of color, obviously, into this pattern. It's much more about tonal But I could also see, putting this with, pink walls or yellow walls or chocolate brown walls, or,
Yeah.
doing something really fun to sort of offset the neutrality of the
Yeah.
fabric.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
I believe this image is of the Sally Holmes rose, which is a wonderful rose that, as you know, that has not very many petals. And so it does very well in sort of wet, damp climates. And it's prolific. It just keeps blooming and blooming. And it has a beautiful, very pale blush color, pinky blush color to it. So that's the background on this fabric. Russell Page, again, one of my library books that I always refer to is The Gardens of Russell Page in my library. And he worked all over the world, and some of the most classically beautiful gardens. Not loose, much more structured. So hence this textile, which is a more structured textile, obviously. I named after him because when you look at his gardens and how he would sort of cascade the enfilade of spaces and pathways and belvederes and staircases, and really there was a geometry to them. This is in Italy. This is Silvio Pellico. And he did do quite a bit of Italian gardens, and I think was very influenced by the Italian gardens, which are basically green gardens. Not a lot of flowers, much more about the structure of gardens and cypress trees and water reflections and statuary and so forth.
A great example of that right there. It has everything, evoking more the hardscape in an Italian garden. And this is a wonderful sort of quiet ellipse to end with, Suzanne, because there's nothing to me quieter than water, gray, the vista in the distance, and it was just so restful and orderly. There's a lot to be said for order.
The serenity, I think there's a serenity about that image. And I find certainly now, with our world sort of topsy-turvy and in shutdown, you can just be transported by imagery and, by the feel of things or the smell of something, or, looking through garden books and all of that. It's just, there's endless inspiration out there.
This has been a season where I have been really going back through a lot of design tomes, whether they're garden design, or I have a big book on the notes, which I really just flipped through when I got it, and now I'm sort of poring over it. And
nice.
So it's just, it's an opportunity. Some people have learned to speak Russian or to cook nouvelle cuisine or something, but I'm just poring over books. I'm just looking and reading and trying to enrich my canon, and you're a part of that, and today has been a part of that, Suzanne. Thank you for sharing your work and your world, and we just look forward to this new collection. And so do you want to just tell people when your new book will be out?
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you also for today, Margot. This was fun, and I hope fun and transporting and inspiring for people watching this. My new book, it's underway. I've got a fair amount of photography in the can, as they say. It's scheduled to be out next year.
Thank you for wanting to come on and speak with me and speak with our audience. And I hope I see you sooner than next fall, but definitely next fall when I come your way.
I know, that would be so lovely, Margot. And thank you very much for having me.
Suzanne, thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.